moving on as quickly as we can, we're going to kind of go here a little bit to this optimistic slide. People were expecting to have more employees return to the office, increase hiring, increase new IT deployments, maybe seeing travel and expenses return. So real quickly, guys, obviously this optimism was caught, I guess, going back about 3-4 weeks when we launched the survey, maybe even 5. A lot has happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but right now, as you look at the world, is there reason to think this optimism is a little too optimistic? Do you have some concerns? Are there factors that you're thinking about when you plan your future hybrid work and your future expenses? Glenn, go ahead. We'll go back in reverse order.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say yes. It's something that every day keeps evolving and changing. I will say that's something that is not set in stone. But when we look in this, and when I feel, for example, this report is something that we were seeing some really optimistic results. Now, when the new waves that we keep seeing, actually, it's something that is changing. For example, definition about my work environment, we are going to be living in a hybrid environment. Actually, that's something that is already set. But how many days, for example, they're going to be working from home, and which employees are going to be working from home, and which ones can return to the office, is something that keeps evolving. So I will say, if somebody has really a crystal ball and can define that, I would really appreciate it to get it that and borrow that one, because every day keeps changing that process. I will feel it in my case that is more in a hybrid mode where we are going to be having that one, and the amount of travel that we are going to be keeping is keep pushing forward. That is saying, yes, we need some face-to-face intervention that most of the time we have demonstrated that we can do it actually remotely. So how we are going to be coming out, that's something that is to be defined.
Thank you, Glenn. And Jim, same to you. I'm also kind of jumping in, not only just the overall optimism aspect, but also here the hybrid aspect, where we're seeing the majority of people expect to continue to work in a hybrid model going forward, and some even here 42% now expect hybrid permanently. So as you look at these numbers from your peers, Jim, do you think maybe the optimism was a little bit too excited early on, or how do you view this going forward?
The positive outlook in terms of the pandemic and getting under control, and then the economy, and then businesses. I think the hope was we see the end of the tunnel, and I feel we can see the end of the tunnel, and this is a bump that is happening again. So I think it's a controllable issue. So a lot of the hope was planning for when the world can resume work and the economy. So a lot of the numbers that you show lines up with the planning that all tech companies have been performing to be ready for a return to office, as well as hybrid, and having all the tools to support that sort of scenario where you have folks coming in to the office permanently, or they choose to do hybrid, and it really depends on the road, right? So using an IT client services example, the desktop support guys will need to be in the office, simply because if you have execs or other users coming in, they will need support. And these same individuals will also need to be able to remotely service individuals that have issues. So I don't think it's overly optimistic. It's a bump that we're going through again, and it is a wait and see to assess whether the numbers in terms of infections are continuing, or are there going to be more stringent applications again. But it's a bump. We are already in that road tunnel. It's just we have a couple of boulders that just showed up.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. To listeners out there, we are going to move to the second portion on vendor specific, but I want to just finish this up quickly. And Graham, to you, sir, do you believe that the optimism is warranted? And when you factor that into a permanent hybrid type of work model, what do you see for your organization and from speaking to your peers?
Yeah, I think there's two interesting insights. You could go to the first, kind of the first slide. First, I do think that if you were to redo this right now, you'd see a lot more people deferring the return to office, but I don't think you'd see a slowdown in hiring. I think a lot of companies hugely underestimated how hard it was going to be to reclaim their workforce after they had to do layoffs and furloughs and remote work. So I don't think that would fundamentally change. I also think that the fact that we're experiencing these roadblocks, these uncertainties, is making companies fundamentally reaccount for how do you want my work, or how do they want their workforces to operate. So I think that the fact that we're doing this again, so to speak, and that there's more uncertainty, eventually companies are going to become used to that uncertainty and evolve, I believe, more toward these hybrid models, even more than you would have seen 3 months ago.
I appreciate that. And Niraj, wrap us up on the macro side. How do you feel about your organization going forward for overall optimism for hiring, new deployments, and as well as what you're seeing as the hybrid workforce going forward?
So I would touch with the hybrid first, because I see a big trend in hybrid work from remote and having the flexibility for people to work from home. We're giving people options, and make as they're comfortable to be able to come into the office. And there definitely has been work done around remodeling some of the desks in the offices in the the physical locations to support this model, convert a lot of the permanent desks into sort of hotel cubes, right, or offices into hotel offices, so people can work with on this hybrid model, right? So I definitely see that sticking around and sort of being the new norm. And in terms of hiring, I see people, hiring picking up, as well as, employees, looking for new talents and ramping up, talent, as we're, starting and deploying, and progressing on our new projects, right? So, we see that, I see a trend also, right? The flights were like, we had a hold completely on traveling, right? That's going to be lifted a little bit because that's becoming new norm. And I heard from what I heard, the airports and the flights right now, because it's full. So that the planes are full, and people
Let's
are
hope
traveling.
so for